Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the feature race at Oaklawn Park on Saturday. Race 9 is the Smarty Jones, going a mile and a 16th for the 3-year-olds, offering some Kentucky Derby qualifying points. Before we get into the field, though, let's be reminded that there is a sale going on at DRF this week. New Year's sale, 15% off in the DRF store. Just go to shop.drf.com and use that coupon code NY 2025. Well, Mike, for this Smarty Jones Stakes, we've got a field of 8 runners signed on for this race, and I guess the favorite could be the number 6 Hot Property, going out for the ever dangerous Brad Cox stable with Flavian Pratt aboard. He was visually impressive in his lone start, going 2 turns at Fairgrounds, but getting a pretty big class test in here.
Yeah, they're going to step him right up here. He is a horse, though, that, obviously he's got the pedigree to go long. Brad Cox knew that he would want distance. They started him right out around 2 turns. He had no trouble dispatching that field through the stretch.
Yeah, he definitely was visually impressive on debut. We'll see if he can get the same trip against this field. He was obviously leading every step of the way in that debut race at Fairgrounds, and we'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Smarty Jones. And kind of interesting that favors front runners. Designation was triggered for this race, Mike, because I do see a little bit of speed in here, especially coming from the number 1, Kale's Angel, who clearly is faster than Hot Property based on some of the races he's run already over sprint distances. And then also the number 5, Mo Quality, who didn't have any speed on debut, but didn't get away from the gate that day, was way more engaged than his second start. So I won't be surprised when a few of these horses are trying to get forward early and Hot Property just might not be quick enough to make the front.
Yeah, you feel that way too, especially with just so many horses stretching out in this race. You just feel like maybe the pace will be a little more lively early than the pace projector suggests. We'll see how it plays out. I do kind of feel like that one, Cal's Angel, he's got the rail here stretching out for the first time. They got to be going.
I would think so. And let's begin our discussion of the contenders with that horse, Kale's Angel, who is coming off the highest Beyer speed figure of anybody in this field, earning a 93 for his victory in the Advent Stakes. This was his first ever start on the dirt. All 4 of his races to begin his career came on the turf in Southern California, and he ran okay in a few of them, but really took a step forward, switching over to the main track at Oaklawn here, pulling away from Innovator, who did come back to win his next start out of the race and had shown some ability prior to that for Dwayne Lucas. So Kale's Angel clearly hinting that he's just a better dirt horse. And you look at his pedigree, and it doesn't say that he can't go this far. I mean, he's by complexity, and while the dam hasn't had a whole lot of production, you go back to the second dam, and she's a horse that was, as good at 7 furlongs as she was going a mile and an eighth on the dirt. So there is a little bit of pedigree for this horse to stretch out. I just feel like he's going to take a lot of money off a big speed figure going 5.5 furlongs.
Yeah, that's the main issue for me too. I mean, he did. I'm not knocking that win that we just saw at all, even though it was a 5 furlong race or 5.5 furlong race. I mean, he always traveled in that race like he was fine with the dirt. As you've already pointed out, it's not like Innovator is a total bum. That horse is actually pretty good. This horse just ran away from him through the stretch and got a figure for it. We'll see. He's got a win at 5 and a win at 5.5. Those are his 2 victories, but it's not like Azuma Beach was a terrible performance going the mile. I don't know. There are ways to like this horse. I wouldn't take a super short price on it.
The number 2 is Hot Gunner, who's going to be a big price in this race. He's coming out of some races at Remington Park where he wasn't even quite good enough to beat Allowance Company there. He's just never run a speed figure that makes him competitive in a spot like this.
Yeah, I didn't really spend a ton of time really trying to dress this horse up either, David. And he just looks like he's overmatched by these horses.
Number 3 is Optical, and he's one of the more experienced runners coming into this race, making the 8th start of his career. They were trying to figure out what to do with him early in his career, made a couple starts on the turf, and looked like a horse that did want more distance, so I get why they went over to the grass. But when they moved him back to the dirt to try a route on this surface for the first time, I think he answered the question of what his preference was, winning that race by 14 lengths and improving his Beyer by some 30-plus points up to a 76. The Breeders' Futurity was just a disaster. I mean, he was kind of involved in that bumping incident into the clubhouse turn that also affected Ferocious, and then he got cut off again on the backstretch, and it looked like he just sulked after that and decided he was done running at that point in the race, just kind of pulling himself up. But he's come back since then with 2 decent efforts. Those were starter allowance races, so maybe not facing as tough company as some others coming into here. But I thought the fields that he faced in those races were actually okay, and he showed some grit to get the job done last time. I think this horse still has some upside, even though he's had a lot of experience up until this point. These are the kinds of horses that we've seen Keith DeSorma win with in the past.
Yeah, that's true. And he's going to be a price in this race too, which I think is something you always have to keep in mind. I'm with you, David. I mean, you have to give him a pass for the grade 1 try at Keeneland. And I really like the way that this horse has bounced back out of that, terrible trip. And he's run really well in both of his starts since then. I can't say that I love either performance, but he has run well. Last time when he got the job done there, I'm pretty sure trips made the difference. And maybe the horse that wound up running second was the best horse in the race. This horse still ran fine in there.
And I will say I caught a video of his most recent workout at the fairgrounds. I don't know what he was working against, but boy, did he destroy that horse in the morning. So seems to be doing well coming in here. The number 4 is Bon Temps, who is maiden, has finished off the board in both starts for D. Wayne Lucas by that D. Wayne Lucas trainee Bravazzo, who I don't see as a sire of too many runners. Just feels like Lucas has taken a shot like he will do sometimes in these situations, but this horse would have to improve a ton to be competitive against this field.
Yeah, exactly. Lucas, he likes to take shots with horses like this. So we'll see what happens as they stretch him out in a way tougher spot. I wouldn't bet him off of either of his first 2 starts.
The number 5 is Mo Quality, a horse that is coming along pretty nicely for trainer Christopher Davis. Got a very educational run on debut at Keeneland where he didn't break that well, was right at the back of the pack early, and Jose Ortiz just allowed him to take some dirt, wasn't really interested in motivating him for the first 3/8 of that race. But once he wheeled this horse out and finally asked him for run, he came with a big finish to finish second in that race. And then next time out, as second-time starters so often do, way more professional, broke better, was right on top of the pace, and put that field away pretty convincingly with a much faster speed figure. This horse looks like he's got some talent, just a matter of whether or not you believe he can handle this stretch out in distance an extra 2 furlongs.
Yeah, like a few other horses in this race, he's going to have to prove that he can do it over a distance of ground now. But I saw all the same things that it sounds like you saw, David. His debut was actually pretty good in a race that he obviously needed that day. Enough trouble early on. They gave him a nice education in there, but he showed in the last 2 furlongs of that race that he could really run. And he improved leaps and bounds in his second start, way more engaged. Always confidently ridden from Junior Alvarado too, just sort of sitting on the outside, waiting for Junior to ask him to go. When Junior asked him to go, he dispatched that field. He was really impressive winning last time, I thought.
The number 6 is that morning line favorite, Hot Property, who's coming off a debut victory at Fairgrounds where he drew off to win by nearly 4 lengths. Got right to the front end that day without much trouble, was able to set a very moderate pace that really was on the slow side. I mean, he was just not receiving much pressure towards the front end, and then was able to pull away from that field in the lane. Got a strong 84 buyer for that effort. I do question the speed figure a little bit, Mike, because we've now seen a couple of runbacks from that race. And while the runner-up Seattle Road did win his next start, he won while regressing 8 buyer points. The third-place finisher Fever Night came back in the same race Seattle Road did, and he regressed 32 buyer points. So I wonder about the quality of the field that this horse was beating. He got such a great trip. There is pedigree for him to be okay. His dad was a millionaire. He's a half-brother to actress who was a grade 3 winning dirt router. I just feel like I need to see a little bit more from this horse in terms of beating real foes and overcoming some adversity.
Yeah, especially when he's 8 to 5 on the morning line. It just feels like he is going to get betting here. And I do think that there are alternatives to this horse. I'm not going to knock his debut. Listen, I agree with everything you said about it. He didn't have a particularly stressful trip on the lead in there. There was a horse sort of keeping up to his outside, but they were never really racing. They were just going slow, matching each other. And this horse had plenty left when that field came into the stretch, and he was just sort of edging away. It's not like he put the boots to that field and was really impressive, just sort of edging away through the final furlong of the race. He ran fine. Maybe he's at least this good and he's in the right kind of a spot here, but I'm not dying to take this horse at sub 2 to 1.
The number 7 is Curvino, another horse with plenty of experience under his belt, though it did take him 7 starts to break his maiden, finally doing so in a $100,000 maiden claiming / auction restricted race where he was in for the $100,000 tag that day. It was the best race that he's put forth so far, and he did win going this 1.16 distance at Oaklawn, albeit over a muddy sealed track. Looked like he was maybe going to settle for second that day before kind of finding another gear in the last 16th of a mile to get up on the finish line. he'd faced some good horses in Southern California, but had just been beaten by them, not really a threat in most of those starts. So I feel like he would need to take another big step forward here, and I'm not sure I can project as much upside with him as I could for others.
Yeah, I looked at him the same. I didn't really like any of his races, and I know most of them are on a different surface, but I didn't, like any of his races necessarily in the maiden ranks in Southern California. He ran fine last time, but it's not an effort that made me want to bet him back in a way tougher spot.
The number 8 is Cole Battle, a horse that is 3 for 5 in his career, and those 3 victories have all been on the dirt, and his 2 losses on the turf. So he's undefeated on this surface, and he's really handled everything they throw at him on the dirt so far, going a variety of distances, stretching out gradually, and he most recently won the Springboard Mile at Remington Park, and we'll take a look at the replay of that race here, where I thought he got a pretty good trip from the inside, saved ground on most of the turns before angling out on the far turn to make this run. And he's a little green. He's been a little green in most of his starts, kind of hanging on his left lead here. When you watch, especially his race 2 back when he won the Jean Lafitte, he was all over the track to get the job done. But the jockey is able to straighten him out just enough here in the Springboard Mile to get the job done and reel in a runner-up who actually does have some talent and run well in that horse's debut race. So Cole Battle took a big step forward from a speed figure standpoint there to get an 84 buyer. If he repeats that kind of number, he's a real player in this race.
Yeah, I wouldn't sleep on this horse at all. I mean, all 3 of his dirt races are good. You mentioned that he looks a little wonky sometimes in the stretch, but once he puts his head down and really gets his mind on running, he finishes in his races. He was good last time. He had trouble early in that race, 2 starts back, overcame that. Then he sort of tried to blow the turn a little bit, but he straightened himself up and won that race easily. This horse, he's got a little bit of ability, and it feels like there's going to be some pace for him to come after in this race.
Well, that wraps up the field. So let's take a look at our picks in the Smarty Jones. And Mike, I think we're both just a little skeptical of the 2 favorites on the morning line, Kale's Angel, especially, who neither of us have in our top 4, and also Hot Property, who I'm maybe a little more against than you are, but just wanted to go in some different directions because I think there are some better prices in this race. You've got the number 5 Mo Quality on top, a horse who just has to get the added distance because he's already shown that he possesses talent.
Yeah, I think he fits with these horses as far as ability goes. We'll see if he stretches out. I'm just going to assume that he's going to be able to get at least this far, David. We'll see how it all plays out. This horse really, I thought, took a significant step forward from from race number 1 to race number 2, and I'm hoping he can do it again here.
And my pick, the number 3 Optical, who's going to be a decent price in this race, at least I'm hoping, does have to get a little bit faster, but I just feel like he's shown some resilience in his last couple starts, and I like the way he's coming in here, and I've just seen Keith DeSormo win with horses with this kind of profile in the past that he brings along slowly, so I'm not going to be surprised when he can upset this field at a price. So the number 3 Optical for me and the number 5 Mo Quality for Mike in race 9 at Oaklawn Park on Saturday, the Smarty Jones. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.